Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to call the Beavercreek Township Zoning Commission meeting for January the 4th, 2024 to order, please. We'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is to our left.
It's also back there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we're ready for roll call.
Mr. Geis?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Stalter?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Present.
I'd like to go ahead and have a motion to approve the agenda.
I so move.
I'll second it.
Mr. Geis?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Stalter?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
And I think we're ready to hear case number 671-12, a revision. Could have the staff report, please.
Good evening, everyone. This property that we're considering tonight has been the subject of numerous other meetings, including beyond the initial site plan approval, a major modification that was approved by this body and then the trustees 2 years ago that had to do with access mostly, reconfiguration of roadways and driveways and so on and so forth. There's been lots of discussion. The property is part of Stonehill Village and is located at the west end of the brand new Overbrook. Is it Boulevard?
Mm-hmm.
On the north side of Overbrook Boulevard at its western end, adjacent to the school property. There it is on the screen. What has been approved in the past has been a rehabilitation and long-term care facility of about 100 beds. And recently, given the kind of a rough couple of years that this industry has had with pandemic management and so on and so forth, this property has recently been sold to a different owner, and the new owners have largely agreed to adhere to all of the plans and restrictions and conditions and so forth that were approved previously, but they have their own design for the building. The design for the building is really the only thing that has substantively changed here between what's previously been approved and what we're looking at tonight. You have images of both the before and after. The design previously approved is the one with two branches of the building with shaped like an X's with a central hallway and so forth. The new building is a different shape overall, and but it contains the same number of beds. It's a very small number of square feet smaller, actually, in footprint. And initially, when I saw it, I thought, well, gee, maybe we should approve this administratively. But then when we got the image of the building itself, we thought, no, the entrances are going to be different, access points, emergency access, and so on and so forth. Our fire department wanted to look at the new design and make sure that it was adequate for EMTs and paramedics and so forth, because our experience with a couple of other facilities like this in other parts of the township is that such a facility will generate a multitude of runs by our squad over time. It's going to be a busy place for our squad, if not for general traffic purposes. So we submitted the plans, the changes that we got for review by the fire department, and they have approved the new design. As it turns out, the new owners are experienced builders of such facilities, and in fact, this image that you see on the screen before you is a pretty close mirror image of one that's under construction now in Marion. And so we're talking about a firm that has the experience and so on and so forth. They knew what they were doing with regard to entrances and exits and water supply and all the rest of it. So that's how we got here tonight. Because we submitted this for review by the fire department, it rose above a level where I could approve the changes administratively to what we call minor modifications in the PUD regulations. Because it's a PUD, the minor modification paragraph kicked in, and here we are tonight. Your approval or approval with conditions or denial of this will be the final decision on the application. This is not, strictly speaking, a public hearing. Minor modifications do not require that. And it doesn't require that your decision be viewed as a recommendation for the trustees. The trustees do not have to review this decision. It's minor, not major. So there have been major modifications in the past, as I said, because of roadway considerations, but not here. So that's why we're here tonight. And there's Brian Bauer is with us. He's a representative of the new owners of this property and is prepared to talk with you about any detailed questions you have about the building or any of the details associated with the construction of the building or the layout of the parcel. The parcel size remains the same. The parcel boundaries remain the same. Roadways largely the same. Number of parking spaces, number of beds, all of that is the same as before. What's really different is only the gross shape of the building. So I'm going to let Mr. Bauer talk about any of the details, unless you have questions of me, of process.
I just have one question for you real quick. This future WinStar, is that a walking path? Is there a street that you can see on the map here? I guess if that's north.
If I may.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
It's,
So when the original nursing home was approved, there was a cross access required to the east. As development occurs to the east, then that could interconnect into that nursing home, creating some circulation or emergency.
Is it a walking path? Is that what it is? Or?
It is not. It will be an access point.
Just like an emergency access point?
We don't like to say emergency anymore. It'll be a full access point, but it'll be an access point between that property and the one to the east. So they just happen to be here first, so they can kind of dictate.
Okay, well, I see emergency access drive on the west side, and then this future WinStar. I didn't know if that was a street that was going to go in there, or what that was. It looked too small to be a street.
So the theory is that we have a cul-de-sac. It's a long cul-de-sac and a dead end. When the nursing home is initially built, that's the only thing that's out there. We're going to provide a secondary temporary emergency access over to the parking lot of the schools.
Okay.
Once the interconnectivity of the property to the east occurs, then that emergency access will just simply turn into a bike, walking path. I can't remember exactly what it's determined, but a walking path that'll connect, the school up to Overbrook. And then that
Right.
connection to the east will create that secondary means of access and around.
Ultimately, it'll connect the school
Yep.
with Claiborne Greens and at some future date, the rest of Stonehill Village too. All those walking paths and so
Can you
forth.
pull up the GIS map? again?
Sure.
Or just the plot, I just wanna get my bearings on them.
Sure. Oh, almost. The cul-de-sac right there on
Right.
Overbrook is the cul-de-sac right there.
Okay.
Zoom in on it.
So, okay, here's the property. Now, what's, let's see.
What's that to the left?
To the right of that, to the, I guess, east,
Mhm.
that is, okay,
Future development.
okay. So we got the Stormhouse going below that Overbrook.
Right, on the other side of
So I'm just-
Overbrook.
is this gonna be probably, future housing? And then I'm trying to figure out what this future Windstar is actually is it gonna connect to a street that's gonna be in here eventually? Or,
So, for example, when we have had someone that's kind of looked at this property, and when we've had those very, very preliminary discussions with them, we've indicated that there will be some kind of an access point open and available to the nursing home.
okay, between houses or whatever it
Between,
is.
yeah,
Okay.
the roadways.
All right, that's all. I just had a question. That's fine.
No, I perfectly understand.
If I could, if you move the map over a little bit, to the left of the property then is the elementary?
That's the school to the left.
Yeah, that's Coy Trebine School.
Okay. That's the only question I had. I just didn't know what that was, future.
Sure.
So to the right of this is Trayvine?
Yeah, oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Trebine sits right here.
Got it. Thank you.
Dayton Xenia sits right, or Dayton Xenia
Oh,
Dayton
down
Xenia
there,
sits
yeah.
below there.
All right, I'm good.
It appears to me that this change has virtually no impact on surrounding properties. Am I right about that?
Right.
Right, okay.
Right, the need for this review was created only by how different the configuration of the building itself was.
And
And
change
not
properties.
Mr. Bauer?
My name, address, and all that sort of thing. Okay. I'm Brian Bauer. I am the architect for the project. I have my own firm, Bauer Architecture LLC. I'm located at 3892 Bear Road Northwest in Dover, Ohio. I have been engaged and have been the architect for this new owner. The parent company is Foundations Health Solutions. They are located out of North Olmsted, Ohio. They have and run over 50 nursing homes across the state, primarily in the northeast, central, south, and southeast part of the state. I think about the only area that they don't have any homes right now is probably in the northwest corner of the state. I have, over the years, probably done 20, 25 of their homes, and worked throughout the ones that are existing now. As Ed said, we have one facility in Marion that's under construction right now. That facility kind of was an evolution or out of a facility we did in Johnstown, Ohio. Very, very similar design, except this one's a little bit larger. I think Johnstown was like an 80-bed design. We're up to a 99-bed design, and that's what we are proposing here. It matches the originally proposed facility on this site in terms of the number of beds. It's a 99-bed facility. All of the rooms are private rooms. We did show on our plans the potential of a future expansion. These buildings have been so successful, we found that within a year or two of them being open, they're out of space, and they're coming back to me and saying, where can we fit, 10 or 20 more beds on the site? So, we've gotten a little bit smarter as we move forward and made some plans to try and accommodate future beds on the site. It has to be done as an addition because all the beds are currently private. There was a time when we used to do things as we would create oversized rooms as there would be oversized private rooms now, and if the population increased in order to meet that new demand, some of the rooms would become semi-private. But we know the market doesn't really work for semi-private rooms anymore, and consequently have focused on developing primarily and all private rooms. This facility will function as a rehabilitation facility. So folks have knees, hips, those sorts of things replaced, come in here, spend a short time in the facility, get back on their feet, go through the physical and occupational therapy, and then we want to return them home because that's where they want to be anyways. It will also accommodate the long-term skilled care side of it, and part of that will also include accommodating ventilator patients. Some of those are there for short term also and will return home. Other ones are longer term stays. We'll employ probably around 100 staff. The largest shift will be about 48. The annual payroll is going to be probably around $4 million, anywhere from $3.5 to $4 million. And then they typically like to try and hire local vendors to supply for the facility. In the past, those contracts have ranged in the neighborhood of around $2 million worth of supplies or services. I think the original facility that was planned for the site was like around 95,000 square feet. As Ed said, ours is smaller. We're about 72,000 square feet. A little bit different configuration. We've kind of worked over the years to try and develop an arrangement of rooms and nurse stations to focus on staffing efficiencies, so that nursing staff isn't having to walk so far to get to the farthest resident that they're going to be treating or taking care of. Trying to focus on about 20 to 25 residents per actual nurse. And so that's kind of how our wings are developed in terms of their length and the number of rooms that are there per wing. We have in addition to the wings, we have a central courtyard that allows us to get the residents outside on the nice days when we have them here in Ohio. But it's really, really nicely landscaped. We work with Pod Design out of Columbus. We initially were developing the courtyards really in terms of using them as outdoor therapy spaces. So there was a lot of different, there were ramps, there were steps, there were different walking surfaces, different manipulatives to try and help them to I guess take a more practical, more normal approach to their therapy, doing things that they would normally do at home or in the community. We found some of the things worked, some of the things didn't, so we've been modifying over time. We do also, on our landscaping side of things, like to plant some larger trees, make the thing look more established. Most of the landscaping is focused towards the front and sides of the building. The back of the building is primarily our service core. That's where our kitchen is. That's where our deliveries occur. So you're not going to see the trucks sitting out in front of the building for deliveries. It all should be happening behind the building. We've worked with enough fire departments now to understand, the absolute necessity of a loop road, loop drive around the facility, and then getting our hydrants spaced properly around the facility so that they, God forbid that there's a reason that they have to come and fight a fire here, they have the needs or the means necessary to do so. We do have some out structures that they're out on the back of the building also. We typically have a garage maintenance shop for the folks to repair beds and things like that in. There's also a generator. Our facilities are fully supported on emergency power. We've just found that it's the code only requires so much of it to be on the generator, but we have just found that you can't displace this type of resident or client. So through experience, we've basically found that we just put the entire building on generator. That way they don't miss a beat. If there's a power outage or an extended power outage, we're not trying to find places to relocate people to temporarily. If that happens, they can weather the storm in place. The buildings are typically slab on grade. This will be a slab on grade building, wood framed, fully sprinklered, a fully automatic fire alarm in the facility. The exterior is made up of a variety of materials, from brick, cultured stone, split face block. We have stone sills. We have hardy board, which is a cement board siding. This is pre-finished in the colors. The shutters, and then typical fiberglass asphalt roof. We do have an ephes material, which is like a stucco material on some of the areas of the building. What we try to do with the buildings is creating gables and bumping areas out on the building that allow us to break up the building. By doing that and adding a bunch of different materials, try and bring the scale of the building down to something that's a little more residential in scale and less institutional. And I think we've accomplished it over the years, perfected it, I guess, a little bit. I think some of the discussion you had previously, we've kind of reviewed some of the approvals that you've given to the previous project and incorporated those elements into our design, the connection to Trabine Elementary, the multi-use path then that would extend up and connect us to the existing multi-use path in the residential development to the north of us. The connector on the east side of our site that you were discussing, we pulled that. We saw that on the previous design that had been incorporated into there. It was our understanding that was probably going to be a street in the future that provided secondary access other than just from the cul-de-sac to our property, because I know there was a lot of discussion about connection to Dayton Xenia Road also. And I think there were some issues there with relative to where any kind of a connection would be to that with curves and the physical elevations of the road. I know we're preserving all of the woods, keeping kind of a screen or a buffer between us and the adjacent neighboring properties. There is an existing pond out on the south side, adjacent to Overbrook Boulevard, that we would maintain, try not to disturb. I think there's like kind of a small wetland area in one of the woodland areas that's on the north side of our facility that would remain undisturbed. Utilities would come from those that have been developed along Overbrook. I don't think I even mentioned the name of the facility. They've already had it registered with the state. Would be Stonebury at Overbrook. I think with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have.
I just have one. This is a single-story ranch building?
Single story, has multiple roof pitches,
Roof, yeah.
some of it that make some of it look taller.
Right.
We have some 9 and 12 pitches, and we have 612. 612 would be the lowest pitch we have. Now, we do have some mechanical equipment located on the roofs of the rear of the building. None of it will be visible from the front, but then we have like vinyl screens to try and screen that too.
Just so I understand the timeline, the blue portions of this have already been approved?
No, that's what we're looking at tonight.
Okay. And
This
what's,
is the modification
This was the
from
original,
the,
I got
From
it.
the previous.
Okay.
okay,
So the pink is just,
That's future.
I think it's future.
Got it.
What's in color on that drawing is what's new, except for the electrical lines. That's not new. They've been there forever.
What you see on the screen was the original design.
Right.
right here. Okay, so that kind of prompts me to the question that I have about the future,
Huh?
in talking about additional parking requirements. So if I counted right, it was about 30 rooms additional, or was it more?
It was potentially 20 additional rooms.
20 additional
Yes.
rooms, and so I was
Right. And
trying
what
to focus, it might be one employee as a nurse, but there's going to be more. So how many parking places per room do you end up having to?
we end up with 161 parking spaces. 8 of those are ADA accessible.
How many?
161 total,
In the ADA,
and 8 ADA.
8, and
Yes.
that's like a standard, that's a requirement, I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
the ADA requires up to, I think it's between 150 up to 200, that you'd provide 8.
So that is, that standard, or whatever those numbers that you just had is with ratio to the blue, not to the, in addition to the pink.
Well, it would include, we put enough parking on the site that
Yes.
we wouldn't have to go back and
Do it
develop
again,
additional
okay.
parking should that addition be undertaken.
Okay. I also remember discussion in the work sessions, you were there, I think, Ed, the work sessions 3 years ago. Randy, were you at those?
I don't recall
When the original it was changed to commercial development so that we could put, the nursing home would be accessible there. The question that I have about that is we spent a lot of time with that boulevard entry for a reason. And I don't remember what that was. Bob, were you there? I can't remember, but I remember the boulevard was a big deal.
So, yeah, if I could,
Go ahead.
so let me switch back to talk about this original.
Yes, that
So-
in and out there.
That was the start of a potential solution for not having 2 means of access to the site, or 2
Right.
means of access to the loop. But we addressed that with a temporary emergency access drive, and then also the future cross-access easement, if you want to call it, to
You
the,
have that temporary emergency access on the original drawing.
yes, you see it right there on the plan.
Yeah.
So if it was a solution for bidirectional for a temporary emergency access and we've lost that boulevard piece, was there more discussion about why we would need to have that in and out as it came over to Overbrook Boulevard for traffic flow?
Well, it's not in the new design.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Right.
not in
No,
the
it's
new.
not. So if I'm not mistaken, if I could speak, when the emergency access, the temporary emergency access was put in, I don't think the previous developer had eliminated that boulevard for any particular reason. We didn't need it at that time. That was one of the solutions, was a boulevard for two means of access, but at that discussion, it wasn't plausible.
There
But
was,
they just left it in, even though they put the temporary emergency access in.
there was also the discussion about building a community. I mean, you know, these are small communities of themselves, but when we look at it from a crow's nest perspective, we're connected not only to the residential, but that future site that we don't know what's going to be on it. But the scientific evidence really talks a lot about building communities between schools and older senior centers. There's not connection between those at this point, like a walking path or between the school and the new design. There wasn't with the old one either. I'm not sure where that discussion went.
No, that's what is created by this. I'm so sorry.
I just want to make sure we're not missing that piece if this is an ideal time to try to put it in there.
Sure. Stand by one second. Let me get back to the plan here. So that is being achieved by this temporary emergency access drive. That temporary emergency access drive is the design has not been specified yet, but it basically turns into a walking path, when it's initially installed. When it's no longer needed as an emergency access drive, it still stays there as a walking path.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's typically what we're doing with those.
Yes, yeah, and the fire department is trying to eliminate any emergency access whatsoever. We have over 40 between the unincorporated and incorporated area, and they are maintenance nightmares. So we're pretty much saying no more on emergency accesses, unless it's in a condition like this where it's a temporary emergency access, and we know that future development, i.e. the future connection to the east, will give us some interconnectivity and secondary means into the site. Once the accessibility and the interconnection is created, then those temporary emergency access roads go away, and they can turn into such things as bike paths.
So when we talk about them being nightmares to maintain, does that turning them into a bike path or another walking path cause a nightmare for the school? Will it burden them, or will it burden the developer
It would be
here?
treated just like any other walking path in the community. I'm sure the school would probably maintain their side of it, and the community, that property owner would maintain the other side. It becomes just like a sidewalk.
Okay.
That sidewalk allows for, the beginning of the interconnectivity between the schools and the other neighborhoods in the area by walking paths or sidewalks along Overbrook or any kind of connecting street up north.
And when we've talked about that in this PUD, they've been 6 to 8 feet wide, correct? They've had this norm that the kids would be on the golf carts driving to
Yeah.
school and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, we haven't discussed that specifically, and that'll be taken care of at regional planning.
Okay.
But yeah, this will conform to most what's the true definition? Walking paths specifications. It'll just have some additional material, additional width to be able to carry emergency vehicles.
I don't have any further questions.
Yeah, I mean, Ann brings up, now that I'm looking at this, it's like, does that have to stay once this future WinStar is opened up? Can that emergency access be taken out?
It could, but I think the property owners don't want it to be taken out.
Because the
I
way
think-
I'm looking at it, just from his point of view, I mean, you got the golf carts, people walking, they have to come on his property and go across his parking lot to get back onto Overbrook Boulevard or something like that. I'm just, if it was a contiguous, does this
Right.
path go all the way around?
See this?
Yeah, there's also the
Okay,
walk
that's that
path
path,
comes
okay.
here and actually
Okay.
comes up.
I didn't realize the blue was a
Exactly.
walking path. I
And
just
let's-
didn't want it emptying out into his parking lot. So
Let's not forget that this is part of Stonehill Village, and from the very beginning, Stonehill Village envisioned access to the school within Stonehill Village from all parts of Stonehill Village.
Yeah, I just didn't realize the blue was a
And,
path.
yeah, leaving
I'm
that,
fine now.
I think the temporary emergency access to the school property was, if I remember correctly, it was a result of kind of a brainstorming work session when it became clear that this facility was not going to get access, direct access to the south, to Dayton Senior Road. There's just, Dayton Senior Road is simply too busy. Projections for the future make it even busier. There are double curves right there with traffic going maybe at unpredictable speeds, heading towards a problematic intersection. The county engineer simply said, no, you cannot have direct access to Dayton Senior Road. And so that led to a whole series of brainstorming ideas about what's the solution. And Overbrook Boulevard is the result, and the need for an additional access point to a facility like this created the need for a second access point, whether temporary or permanent. Well, we need a permanent one, but it's not going to be built at the same time as the facility. So that's how this came to be. And then, so the Stonehill Village officials, along with some of the developers of the initial design for the nursing facility, approached the school board and received permission to use their parking lot as access for a secondary emergency access. It's not difficult to imagine Overbrook being obstructed. Let's say, we've heard of tornadoes here. I mean, look at the power lines that run overhead over Overbrook Drive. It's really not difficult to imagine that kind of a horrible situation. And in those kind of weather events, access to a facility like this might be even more important. So the second entrance was not something the township was ever willing to forget about. We insisted on it from the beginning. We were tenacious in saying, no, there will be two entrances from the day this facility opens. There will be two entrances. Whether one is temporary or not, we don't care as long as it's adequate. And so across the school property was the best that we could do at the time.
Right.
And in the future, maybe the eastern entrance to this property will connect to Amersham Avenue over in Claiborne Greens. I mean, who knows, but there will be permanent.
No, I understand now. I just didn't
access
realize
points.
that was a bike path or a walking path
Yeah.
going over there on the west side.
It's been an interesting process, and I think our first meetings about it were well over 4 years ago.
It was a while. I do remember that. I remember some of the specifics, and the idea of making certain there was a sense of community was big. And one of the things that we as a unit struggle with is making certain that the voices of the residents are heard, and that sense of community is more than respected. If we can somehow create the policies that allow that, then we're even more satisfied with the job that we're doing. When some company such as yourself comes in, we know that you're temporary, you're handing off to, you know, the person that's going to, the entity that's going to buy this. There is no guarantee that any of those beds are going to be guaranteed for the residents of our township. We know that. It's whoever gets there first. The beds are full everywhere, all over the state. So when we look at this, I mean, the only thing that we have to really consider is how can we, I mean, as far as our, from the premise of building community, is how do we allow that to have a place? And the only thing that I see right now is the school. Yes, there's residential behind, and there's potential, you know, commercial coming to the side, but it's still isolating us from that sense.
If I may, so I it's not perfectly to scale, but I overlaid the school plan on top of GIS. And if you kind of look up in this corner, there's an existing bike or existing walkway,
Right.
saying that wrong, up there. And you'll notice that path does kind of come up and connect with that. So,
Correct.
so that's
Yeah, I
that's
just
the
didn't realize
future
when
walkway.
looking, it was so small, I didn't realize that was a path there. I just didn't want school kids getting out, riding their bikes and having to go through his parking lot. You know, it just looked like it was emptying into his parking lot, but that can be bypassed by.
Some of those details will also be worked
Yeah.
out through our PCC also.
Not to say they won't, but, right.
You got a lot of cars parked right there, and that's the only, but now that I see that there's a bike path there or a walk path or whatever, that's fine, because eventually there's probably gonna have to be one on the front side of his building somehow, if there's development, or where they go around the facility to get to the what is that, east side of the property, if that's future development housing.
Along Overbrook, right.
And I think regional planning will probably require some kind of sidewalk access
Right.
up to the buildings.
Yeah.
You know, when
Or
it gets
to the
regional,
cul-de-sac at least.
yeah, because they'll want to be able to have pedestrians be able to come from the buildings down to Overbrook to walk on the walking paths.
Okay, I have no more questions.
Jeff, you have questions?
Yeah, as a one board member here who has recent firsthand experience in a rehabilitation center, I wonder if you might speak to the relative percentage of the floor space devoted to the private rooms versus open community areas for things like physical therapy. Because you did mention the original plan was reduced in size, the floor space, quite a bit.
Our design is substantially smaller than what theirs was, correct.
Right.
There are multiple lounge spaces, porch areas throughout the building, looking out onto the courtyard as well as out to the front of the building.
Can you speak to the relative percentage?
Percentage? No, I can tell you that the minimum square foot that has to be provided by Department of Health standards is 25 square feet per resident of dining space and 25 square feet per resident of lounge or activity space. And I'm going to say, are probably double that in terms of what we provide in our facilities, because we don't want folks sitting in their rooms either. I mean, there are those that's what they want to do.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
want to
you
get them out.
need to get out of your room to get the physical therapy. So.
Correct. So we have in this particular design, there are four different lounge facilities that are probably at a minimum 600 to 800 square feet each. Some of them are larger than other ones, but
Say lounge facilities, so they're intended for.
you can go in there and sit at tables and drink coffee with families. You can watch TV. They have
So
activity.
you don't have a
directors.
dedicated room for PT.
Yeah, oh yes, there's definitely a dedicated room
Okay.
for PT, yes, absolutely, absolutely, that's a big part of it, this, it's obviously, it's very difficult to see here, but this corner of the facility is PT. We have a lounge area here, we have a larger space that comes off here that is a training room. What we've done is we've partnered up with, in some cases, local schools, nursing schools that have nursing programs and things like that, be able to bring them in, do training with them here on site where they can actually go out to the rooms and have actual hands-on experience there. This area here is lounge space. This area here, the whole front lobby is a lounge and sunroom that look out onto the courtyard. This is a lounge space in this corner here. This is all the main dining room in this area here with our kitchen being in this location. If we do the addition, there would be another lounge out in here.
You mentioned earlier about, this is a one-story, so you mentioned earlier about having, and I don't know if this is part of your plan or just conceptually, to have like a ramp and or stairs.
In terms of doing physical?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. This courtyard development incorporates that, where we have ramps, we have stairs, we have different concrete surfaces. We did have like an artificial turf in there also, so that you could negotiate different levels of grass and whatnot, but we found,
One last,
unfortunately, that to be problematic. We had ducks and geese landing in our in our courtyards, making a mess. So we've taken that back to a planting area at this point.
one last question, the floor space, square footage for the private rooms. Did you talk to that?
It is, the minimum room, I think, is about 285 square feet. Again, and we understand that what the Department of Health publishes are minimum standards. Their minimum standard for a private room is 100 square feet. You can't make that work for a private room. It just does not work. But ours are like 285 square feet plus the bathroom space. Each room has its own private bath with a 5-foot wide roll-in shower, so you don't have to share bathroom space with any of the other residents. And then it has also central bathing areas, so if you need a little bit more care, where someone needs to be bathed on a gurney type of, that those will fit in an 8-foot wide shower that we have. So each one of those rooms would have an 8-foot wide Corian shower. And then typically we have like one tub unit. We found that most people prefer the showers over the tub, so it very rarely gets used.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have
Rick?
none. Nope.
Ed, this, I'm assuming this either has or will go through some architectural review with Stonehill?
It has.
It has
Okay.
happened.
I sent the drawings to Tom Kretz, and actually he sent the approval back, emailed it to me today, but I was out of the office, so I couldn't print out a copy, but I can certainly forward a copy to
No, all good.
Ed or anybody. Yes,
They take care of their own.
yes.
When do you think this will be completed? What's your timeline to have it completed?
Timeline would be to get this thing under construction this spring. So we're gonna be pushing hard to get through all of the county approvals. Get construction started in the spring, and normally this takes about 14 months to construct, depending on the weather we run into. We already have our contractor on board. He's the one building in the Marion facility, and he's large enough, he's got a large enough crew that he can get this one started. It's a pretty efficient operation. They typically start, they build the building pad, or they get the building pad started for like maybe one side of the facility, and they will start there, get the underground plumbing in, and as the building pad's being built for the next wing, They get the underground plumbing in, then they move the underground plumbing up here, they pour the slab, they start to build, frame the walls up, so it moves right across and right around the facility. Typically, we're moving out the front of the facility. We leave the front of it open so they can get all the equipment in to get all the courtyard built, and then close the building around it.
It's a standard stick frame, 2x4, 2x6, or
2x6 exterior walls, yes. An R21, roof would be an R38, energy efficiency.
Okay. Anything else you want to share with us?
I don't think so.
All right, perfect. So there's no reason to open a public portion of the meeting, and any more discussion among the zoning commission members?
I think it's a nice project. I think it adds value to Stonehill and the community at large. That's great.
Anything else?
I have nothing.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion. Last thing we're-
No, I'm sorry. I'll make a motion that case number 671-12, the minor modification to the plan, be approved as submitted.
I'll second it.
Mr. Geis?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
yes.
Ms. Stelter?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, I think next on our agenda is approval of the previous minutes. Those were all sent out. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at them?
Yes.
Any questions about them? Any friendly amendments?
Yeah. On the second to the last page, and I understand that, how much is enough to put in your minutes is a judgment call. Brandy, I think you've done a great job. For me, there was a moment during the meeting, and this is reflected on the second to the last page, which is really the guts of the meeting in terms of the George Ober project. There's a section in here that says, Mr. Hill stated that the criteria for a PUD and shall only be approved when the following criteria is satisfied. Criteria given does not comply, he is not convinced and suggesting not to approve it. It seemed to me that that was a little bit of an epiphany moment for some of us in terms of, I specifically cited that the criteria is contained in the zoning code at section 1706.9, and at least I would like to see us adhere to that in the future. So I'd like there to be some mention of it because I did mention it. And the specific criteria that I felt wasn't met or weren't met were the compatibility and impact. I don't feel that Mr. Ober had brought forth enough information for us to evaluate the compatibility and the impact, which are required criteria, probably the most important criteria. I would just like to see the minutes reflect this.
Okay.
You did cite the number
I did.
that evening.
We all did. And I did make mention of the compatibility and impact as being deficient in my mind.
So you're recommending an update to this?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll just reapprove them in the next meeting.
While you're at that, if you could maybe spell my name correctly, it's
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
Okay.
it's Jeffrey, not Jeffery.
Jeffrey.
I was hoping you weren't going to say Brown.
I apologize. Okay, can I get with you at the end?
You
to
can.
Make sure, okay.
I can also,
Because I was going by audio, so we can make notes and I'll fix it.
or I can share with everybody some suggested language for that little passage.
Okay, well, I don't even know what, okay. We're at one.
I'll work with you.
Okay, please. Okay, we'll just hold that off then.
Okay,
Table that.
so we'll be tabling that.
I don't know.
Yes. I'll make a motion
Do you make a
Thank
motion?
you. Please make a motion to table it.
that we table the amendments, or the minutes for, gotta go get, what date was that? The
December the 4th.
December 7th, December 2023 meeting.
Was it?
I thought I saw the fourth reference at one point.
It was the seventh, I think.
Yeah, it's December 7th.
It was December 7th.
Just need a
You know
second.
what, it's today's the 4th. That's maybe where it's coming from.
Okay.
Ed, is there a correct way to, are we doing everything right in terms of amending the minutes?
Sure.
Is there anything else we should need to?
I think I made a motion that we table the amendments till the next meeting.
You can
I'll
get with
second
her
that
to-
motion.
There we go.
You can get with her to verify and come back through, check it again.
Mr. Geis?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Stelter?
Yes. All right. Any more business? Anything for the good of the order? To adjourn?
I will make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Geis?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Absolutely.
Ms. Stelter?
Yes.
Thank you, board.